Overbooked time. We're jumping into Caroline now, chapter 11, and we are at sea. The date is May 3rd, 1915, and the chapter starts with a concert rehearsal for Caroline.
During the rehearsal with Marjorie Schuyler, there's some question whether or not Caroline is talented enough to be performing with Marjorie. And of course, this is all coming from Marjorie's point of view. But something interesting that happens with Marjorie is Marjorie just like outright says, okay, if you don't like playing this piece, then why don't you go get the music that you have? Why don't you go get that music that we all know that you have, but it's hidden somewhere, like we've never seen it. So they go back and forth arguing about where it is. And then Caroline lets slip that it's not in the safe at the purser's office where all of her other jewels are. Caroline spills the beans to Marjorie that there's a safe in their stateroom and that's where the Schubert music is. So now someone else knows where it is on the ship.
Yeah, there are also some clues in that scene. One being confirming our suspicions that, people know about the music, something's up with the music. And in addition to knowing that there's something atypical about this music, just the fact that everyone wants to see it, there's also the note that there are German associations with it because it's a Strauss waltz that Gilbert has under the lock and key, which is German. And Marjorie, who wants to play the music, says, oh, well, typical German, not bothering with words for the music, which Caroline tries to explain, well, it's a waltz, so of course there are no words. Marjorie says, oh, typical German, there's no words, as a bit of a snub to the German people. But what does this German music have to do with the German war? I guess we'll see.
Well, actually, Germans aren't the only thing that Marjorie is snubbing. She's also snubbing Caroline and Gilbert's relationship. So she says something along the lines of Gilbert might have new money. And if you know anything about the time that this book takes place, old money was where it was at. And she has the audacity, and I say the audacity because I thought during this time that your manners might be a little bit more on point. But she goes ahead and says, what in heaven's name could be more important than spending time with you, his young wife? It's no wonder you don't have children. Like, that's a lot, Marjorie. I mean, like, I'm not sure if I like this Marjorie character much. She's very insulting. And Caroline, I feel like, is entitled to have those feelings. But Marjorie, that's none of your business if they don't have kids or not. So another thing, Marjorie is just kind of a meddler there. So the rehearsal doesn't end great. Marjorie ends up like walking out saying how difficult Caroline is to work with, all because basically Caroline wouldn't show her the Strauss music. But of course, who shows up at the end of the scene, who's been in there the whole time? It's our guy who's everywhere. It's Robert Langford. He's everywhere. He apparently was sprawled out on a sofa, just listening to everything. Gives Caroline a little round of applause. They talk about James again, like Robert's brother who died. And they talk about the kiss. And Caroline repeats her favorite line, I love my husband. It's her favorite line. She just says it constantly over and over and over again to Robert. And at this point, Robert says that he's in love with her. And she says, I love my husband. And so, like, for fans of Robert and Caroline, it's not looking so good at the moment. Everybody's dealing with a lot of strange kind of emotions. And Gilbert's around. He actually shows up at the rehearsal. And that's when Robert and Gilbert have their first kind of like standoff. It's getting weirder now, these scenes between everybody.
It's a bit of a bummer and a bit of weird mounting tension here, because even at the end of the chapter, Gilbert and Caroline are finally together. They are intimate with each other. And at the end, they're in Caroline's room because let's not forget that we have separate rooms for Gilbert and Caroline. And a note arrives, and Caroline thinks that it's going to be a note similar to a note that Gilbert left on their wedding day, but it ends up being 2 words, forgive me. And it's signed with the letter G. So my thoughts are, what are these notes? And there's all these notes, there are telegrams. Why are we sending notes? I mean, Gilbert is literally married to Caroline. Why does he need to send her a note? But even not counting that, what are we forgiving for? So is he having an affair? Is he just saying, forgive me for my craziness on the ship? I just don't know. But it's one of those great cliffhangers. You know, I love it when a chapter ends on a cliffhanger like that because you know that you're going to find out what needs to be forgiven. So I'm excited to find out. What do you think, EJ? Do you have any thoughts about what needs to be forgiven?
I think Gilbert's a spy. Pretty simple. I think he's a German spy who is asking for forgiveness from Caroline for a variety of things. The way he's treated her, leaving her in the bed alone, not being completely open and honest with her. I think those 2 words say a lot from Gilbert. I don't think Gilbert's having an affair. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's way more sinister than that, unfortunately. And, I mean, Caroline's kind of already having an emotional affair. Well, actually, and she's made a physical step to make that a physical affair. So it would be kind of crazy if they both were having affairs on each other.
I will say, too, that I agree. Like, I think Gilbert's a spy, too, or some sort of agent or some sort of bad guy. But I guess my intrigue here is I don't necessarily think that that's what he would be talking to Caroline about because he has been so secretive about his work and what he's doing. So I feel like why now would he reveal to her that he's a spy? So, you know, eventually she's going to go to him and say, Gilbert, why do I need to forgive you? You know, and he's not going to say, oh, because I'm a spy. So I'm wondering if there's something more intimate or personal that needs to be forgiven, but I don't know. But that's kind of where the intrigue lies for me because I do think that they're setting Gilbert up, sure, as a bad guy. Caroline.